Today I'm joined by Giselle Portenier, the filmmaker behind In the Name of Your Daughter, a harrowing and inspiring documentary showing the plight of young girls fleeing female genital mutilation in Northern Tanzania. Giselle is a Canadian filmmaker and journalist who has made many documentaries on human rights topics. Please enjoy our following conversation. All right. So the first question I have, you've produced and created many documentary films on human rights, and especially on the rights of women and children. In your opinion, what is the power of documentaries?
Well, I think the power of documentary is huge. Like any kind of storytelling, it draws people in. You know, documentaries tell the stories of people and their real lives, and they have the power to touch hearts, touch minds, and inspire action.
Yeah. And your latest film, In the Name of Your Daughter, tells the story of girls escaping female genital mutilation, or FGM, in Northern Tanzania. What is FGM and why is it an issue?
Female genital mutilation is, in my mind, the worst systematic abuse of girls' and women's human rights. Female genital mutilation is the alteration of the female genitalia for non-medical reasons. And it can be very extreme and includes, in fact, what's called infibulation, which means removing all the external genitalia and closing up what's left and allowing only a tiny opening for the passing of urine and menstrual blood. So it's a very severe human rights abuse. And it's now happening, we know, in more than 90 countries around the world.
And why did you decide to make a film about FGM?
You know, I see female genital mutilation as the worst systematic human rights abuse committed against girls and women in the world. And I have made many documentaries about the human rights of women and girls, but this is one topic I had never touched. And I found out about it about 2 decades ago. And ever since then, I wanted to make a documentary about it because I think we need to step up action on FGM. It's a topic that is largely ignored in many governments, by many institutions, and indeed by the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement has largely ignored the issue of female genital mutilation. And it's a terrible form of sexual violence, abuse of children's rights, and abuse of human rights. So I really wanted to make a documentary about it.
And in the documentary, you follow Roby Samweli, who runs a safe house for girls at risk of undergoing FGM. How did you make contact with Roby initially and then create a network for the film?
It's very difficult to get documentary commissioned on female genital mutilation because it's a very difficult topic, and a lot of broadcasters and others think that audiences won't come to this topic. So I tried in many ways to get a documentary made, and it was very difficult, in fact impossible for a while. So I put a Google alert for myself on female genital mutilation, and I had it there for several years. And one day, the story of Roby Samweli, this amazing woman who runs a safe house for girls looking to escape from female genital mutilation, was on my Google alert. And I thought, you know, this could be the film, this could be the story, because stories about children, stories about girls and their human rights, and in fact, these girls are standing up for their human rights, and they are so courageous. And I thought this would really inspire audiences. So I found Roby Samweli's email address and got in touch with her. And then I ended up going to Tanzania to do a reconnaissance mission to see if this would make a good film and whether Roby felt comfortable trusting me to bring the story of the girls and the safe house to the world. So that's how it all started. And then I launched a fundraising campaign to raise money. And we ended up getting money and contributions from hundreds of people in over 40 countries, people who wanted to see this story told. And eventually we got interest from broadcasters, including the BBC. And that's the story of how the film got made.
You mentioned the courage of the girls, and that definitely comes through in the documentary. And many of the subjects that are interviewed in the film are girls from Safe House. How did you create trust with the girls, and what was interviewing them about their experience with FGM like?
When I started down the road of making this documentary and arrived at the Safe House during what's called the cutting season in December, my most important goal was to gain the trust of the girls and to respect that trust all along. You know, I think the most important thing for me was that when the film was made, when the film went out, and when the girls saw the film, that they would feel that I had honored their trust in me to bring their voices and their stories to the world. So that was huge for me. I was lucky in that I managed to put together a fantastic Tanzanian crew for the making of the documentary. So I was the only non-Tanzanian person there. Everyone else was a Tanzanian, from the cameraman to the driver to the sound recorders, and so on and so forth. Everybody was a Tanzanian. And that really helped gain the trust of the girls, because they engaged with the girls, and so of course did I. We had many meetings with the girls through the filming, because through the filming more and more girls came to the Safe House. So every day there would be new girls who wouldn't have met us before or heard about us. So we would have meetings in the church, which was used for their assemblies, and talk to the girls and explain what we wanted to do, which was essentially to tell the story of female genital mutilation from the point of view of the children, the girls themselves. Because, you know, that's really what was so different about this story and this film, is that it is the voices of the girls. And those voices have never really been heard before in a documentary format. So we worked very hard to gain the girls' trust. And I had a fantastic ally in the cameraman, Samson Kapinga. He was this young 30-something, very gorgeous, very hip, cool guy. And the girls loved him. And he would hang out with the girls every day. Even after the filming, he would go over to the Safe House and just hang with them. And so, you know, what happened after quite a short time is that they were oblivious to the camera. They didn't even know the camera was there. We were part of the whole gang. We were all in this together, in a sense, you know, so it was really wonderful. I still remained somewhat of an outsider because, of course, I couldn't communicate with them in their own language. But we had other ways of communicating. And one of the things that fascinated the girls was my hair, because my hair is so different from theirs. So I would be sitting there talking with someone, or we'd be filming something, and I would find a little girl's hand in my hair, just feeling it. I just wanted to feel the texture of my hair. And, you know, I love that, because yes, we are coming from different cultures, but we have so much more in common than we have differences. And that really showed it when they had their hands in my hair, and I would touch their hair and they would giggle, and it was really lovely.
Well, other than gaining the trust of the community and the girls, were there any other major obstacles or challenges that you faced while making this film?
For me personally, the biggest challenge was not speaking any of the local languages. And so communicating directly with the girls, and indeed others and their families, was very, very difficult. So that was a big challenge. There were other challenges, of course, and that was that we were there during what's called the cutting season, when groups of girls are being forced to go through mutilation on a daily basis. And so the tension was high, because Robi Samweli, of course, goes to communities to try and encourage them to stop perpetrating this human rights activity on their daughters. And the communities don't want to hear that message. And the cameras, of course, I think also had the possibility of raising the tension, because the communities knew now they were being recorded. And everywhere we went, we got permission from the communities and their leaders and so on. But we still weren't welcomed with open arms. So on a couple of occasions, you know, we felt that there was a real danger in going to the communities to film. And it was tough to make the decision whether to go or not. And in the end, we did go. And in the end, we got some of our best material by making that decision. But that was a challenge. And getting the people to open up about female genital mutilation was also a challenge, because this has been going on for a long, long time. And they are convinced that it's the right thing to do for their daughters. And who is Roby to come and tell them otherwise?
Right. Could you tell us more about why some communities in Northern Tanzania would still support FGM despite the existing government ban on it?
Female genital mutilation has been going on for generations, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so it's ingrained as a custom that must be continued from one generation to the next. So anything that we've been doing for generations is difficult to change. And so FGM is very difficult to change. It's hard to change people's minds about it. In Tanzania and everywhere in the 90 plus countries where FGM is known to happen, the main reason for it to happen is to control a girl's sexuality. And that's the same in Tanzania. It is thought that if you put a girl through female genital mutilation, you will decrease her sexual pleasure. Therefore, she will be more pure, she will be more faithful, she won't be promiscuous, and so on. So it's very hard to change people's minds on that. And the other thing in Tanzania, and this happens in some other countries as well, particularly in Africa, is that it becomes part of the economic structure. So in Tanzania, female genital mutilation is part of the economic structure. Girls are seen as the property of their parents. And when girls get married, the parents get a bride price. And if the girl has been mutilated, the bride price doubles. So in Tanzania, the bride price is usually given in the form of cows. So for a cut girl, the family would get twice the number of cows as for an uncut girl. So because it forms part of this economic structure, that also makes it very difficult to change this particular tradition.
And Roby takes a very different approach to the problem, or a very unique approach. It's very grassroots, of sort of reconciling girls back with their families after the cutting season. How do you think that this approach benefits the girls and their families? And did you see any families changing their opinions on FGM?
Yes, so the girls come to Roby's safe house to escape female genital mutilation. And it's really fascinating how Roby and her team spend time empowering the girls, to empower them to stand up for their human rights. So that's a process that you see in the film and that I saw in the time that I was there. And that was fascinating. And then the other part of it is that Roby tries to reconcile the families and the girls by explaining to them that female genital mutilation has lifelong effects on girls, both physical and mental, and that it's a human rights abuse. And often she manages to persuade the families to sign up to not cutting their daughters. She explains that not cutting their daughters and giving them an education instead is far more beneficial in the long term for both the girl and the families. So I did see families change their minds on many occasions. Not always, because some families just don't want to change their minds. So in fact, some girls have been at the safe house for several years because their families would never commit to not cutting their daughters. But generally speaking, it is successful. Maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but Roby and her team go back time and again to try and get the families to change their mind. And over time, they do manage it with most of the families.
Oh. And are you still in contact with Roby and the girls from the film? And if so, how are they doing now?
I have been in contact with Roby and some of the girls from the day that I started filming until today. In fact, supposed to have a meeting with Roby in about an hour from now. So I'm very involved in what's going on there. I feel very strongly about this issue, and I feel also a real responsibility to stay in touch with the girls and see how they're doing, because they gave me a part of themselves, and I feel like I want to give a part of myself to them moving forward. So I am in touch with the girls. In fact, through COVID, we've had around 30 screenings of the documentary online, and several of them have involved Roby and the girls, some of the girls who appear in the film. Some of the girls who appear in the film, the main characters, have been given sponsorship to go to a local English boarding school in their community. So the girls have not been taken away from their community. They're still in the community, but some of them are going to an English boarding school. And as a result, they speak English quite well. So we've had screenings where the girls have been able to explain a little bit about their lives, about their motivation for continuing their own fight against female genital mutilation. And some of the girls are now 15 and 16 years old. So it's absolutely wonderful to see them and hear them being so articulate and so powerful in their conviction that female genital mutilation must stop in Tanzania and around the world.
That is, yeah, that's amazing. They can tell their story in that way. What do you think it means to show this documentary in Tanzania? And do you think your film and showing your film has changed anything?
In Tanzania, I think the film has had quite a bit of impact. Roby has taken the film around the communities for the last few years since we did the filming. She shows it to villagers and then talks to the villagers afterwards. And it has changed minds and hearts. I think some parents have seen the light and are protecting their daughters more. And of course, it also inspires children to run away, because what happens when you have a village screening in Tanzania, you have to imagine it's the proverbial jacaranda tree, it's outside, it's dark, there's not a lot of entertainment in the villages. So everybody comes, from the young children to the parents and the grandmothers and grandfathers, the elders, the religious leaders, everyone is there at the screening, and they all see the documentary. So that means that everyone is talking about female genital mutilation and what to do about it. And I actually had the incredible privilege of being at the very first village screening in Tanzania with the documentary. And the following day, 3 young girls came to the safe house. They were 8 and 9 years old. And one of them was brought to the safe house by her own brother. Wow. So that's change in the making.
And actually a follow-up question to that. Are there screenings in places where girls don't have access to safe house, or do they have access to other organizations or places they can go to run away from this problem?
Just before I get to that, I just want to elaborate too that the impact in Tanzania, the film in Tanzania also was instrumental in getting stakeholders, both national and international, to collaborate on the fight to end FGM. And female genital mutilation became a very large part of a national action plan to fight against violence against women. And so that's something that, I'm so delighted with. So the film is having impact in both small ways and big ways in Tanzania. I think one of the issues that I find frustrating is that there aren't many safe houses, because the international community has concerns about sponsoring safe houses. And one of those concerns is simply that they're ongoing and they require financial investment for years. And the international community, by and large, isn't so keen on that. So there aren't enough safe houses. So the film has shown in Tanzania in areas where there aren't safe houses. And that, to me, is a concern, because I feel the film needs to be shown in places where there are safe houses. So if girls want to run away, they can run away. So I think that is a problem. But I think more safe houses are also not being created. And the film's potential to actually make change and change the minds and hearts of the adults, I think, is there.
And then since its release in 2018, the film has been screened at film festivals across the globe as well. including Tanzania, Canada, the UK, the United States, Austria, and Denmark. How do you personally measure the impact of this film?
Well, I think the film has made a big difference in many ways in shining a light on the issue of female genital mutilation. It has shown all over the world at film festivals. It is shown on television around the world. And it has actually even shown in parliaments around the world. It's shown in Parliament of England, Australia, the Netherlands, and Canada. So governments are seeing the documentary and are learning about the issue. So that's really fantastic. But the film has had other impact as well. Robi Samweli, for example, has received national awards. She's been invited to speak at the United Nations. She's been invited to speak to 200 parliamentarians in Ottawa in Canada. And so that is really helping to shine a light on the issue. Another wonderful thing that's happened is FALCO, which is the Federation of American Women's Clubs overseas and includes women from around the world. They adopted Robi Safe House as a project for 2 years, and they raised over 160,000 US dollars for the Safe House. And they had many screenings, virtual screenings. And the girls were there sometimes, Robi was there, I was there, and it's really shone a light on the issue internationally. So I think it's had quite a bit of impact, and the impact continues. And of course, as a result of my interest in female genital mutilation, I also personally realized that this is a big issue in Canada that is being completely ignored. I discovered that we probably have over 100,000 survivors, and we have girls at risk, and yet female genital mutilation is not on our agenda, it's not being talked about. So I founded the FGM Canada Network along with 3 others, and I'm still the co-chair of the network. And together we're trying to draw attention to this issue in Canada, and we've had quite a bit of success. So that's another, indirect impact of the documentary.
Yeah, so you founded an FGM and FGM Canada network in Canada. What kind of problems does Canada face regarding FGM? You mentioned survivors, but is there FGM being conducted in Canada in some places, or what is that like?
Yeah, the issue of female genital mutilation, I think, is very big in Canada, but people don't know about it because we have a culture of silence and a culture of silencing. So people who want to talk about female genital mutilation are silenced, both by the communities and by the whole notion of we shouldn't be talking about other people's cultural habits. So that's a big challenge. What I've discovered is that we have over 100,000 survivors, and that there is plenty of evidence of girls being taken for what's called vacation cutting. I myself personally have met 5 young women who were taken back to their home countries and forced to undergo female genital mutilation. These are girls who are now in their 20s. We have many girls also who came to Canada already having been through female genital mutilation. And those girls have nowhere to turn because we don't have any kind of support for them. And we have no protocols in place to support girls or to protect girls who are at risk. So it's a really big issue here that isn't being addressed. So we've had several different kinds of campaigns and advocacy to engage the government. And we have had now 2 screenings organized by a Canadian senator in Parliament. We've succeeded in getting our Prime Minister to actually talk about female genital mutilation on February the 6th, which is the International Day of Zero Tolerance for female genital mutilation. No government, no Prime Minister before had ever spoken about FGM in this way. And we managed to get him to speak about it and to talk about it as something that we are unequivocally against. And so these are, small successes, but they go a big way. And we've just got some funding as well from the Canadian government. And we're going to be putting together interactive virtual education modules for professionals who are working in the areas of health, mental health, child protection, and education. So we have a long way to go here in Canada, but we started doing that, so it's fantastic.
And do you plan on making more films about FGM, or will you be exploring other topics? What are your future plans?
I am so passionate about this issue of female genital mutilation that I'm working very hard to make and continue to create impact with the documentary. And of course, I founded the End FGM Canada Network, and so I'm very passionate to make change on this topic in Canada. We now have some funding, and I can see that we will have some people who can take forward that fight, and that will give me more freedom to pursue other films, other topics. But for the time being, I'm very, very much engaged in just creating more impact with the documentary that I did make already, In the Name of Your Daughter, and also in creating change in Canada.